Hello, I'm Bobby Savoy, AARP Louisiana State President. I'm also the volunteer lead for both the Speakers Bureau and the Fraud Watch Network for the Louisiana State Office. As we know, hurricane season is fast approaching, and we want everyone to have as much information as possible to be prepared in the event of a hurricane. Today I'm speaking with Marly Maskill, who is the Manager of Disaster Partnerships and Training at the St. Bernard Project. Thank you, Marly, for joining me in this conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
So, could you tell me a little bit about SBP and what the organization does?
Yes, so SBP is a national nonprofit that focuses on disaster resiliency and recovery. We were formed after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and our founders just started rebuilding homes for individuals affected by Hurricane Katrina. Over the years in serving in New Orleans, they developed a really great process to bring people home very quickly after disaster. And we've been able to share our model with communities across the country and in the Bahamas in disasters or recovering from disasters since then. So we now have 9 operating sites across the country where we're actively rebuilding homes for individuals affected by disasters. In addition to that work that we do after disaster, we also work with individuals, communities, and government leaders to help people be better prepared before the disaster hits. So hoping that collectively we can be in a better position so there's less of an impact when the next disaster comes.
Yeah, those are terrible times after those kinds of disasters like we had for Katrina and Rita and floods and fires and hurricanes and all of those kinds of disasters that impact people so negatively. So if you live in Louisiana, you know that hurricane season begins June 1st, and not only Louisiana but the whole Gulf Coast. So what are some of the preparedness steps that we should encourage homeowners and renters to take?
Yeah, so we recommend 5 quick things that individuals can do to be better prepared before disaster season. The first one is to obtain flood insurance. Homeowners and renters insurance does not cover flood damage to your property. And as we're seeing storms becoming more severe, we're also seeing more and more properties flooding that have never flooded before. And so just encourage everyone to take that step before disaster season. Second, we encourage everyone to thoroughly document your home inventory. Once you have insurance, the best way to make sure that you're maximizing the resources if you are impacted is to be able to provide documentation of everything that was in your home that was damaged or lost in the event. Third, we really encourage everyone to collect and save your important documents in a safe place. So having those documents safe during the disaster means that you can quickly apply for resources that become available, whether it be your insurance or FEMA or other resources that become available in the community to support your recovery. Fourth, we encourage everyone to make a list of important contacts. This helps you to keep in touch with your friends and family and key service providers before, during, and after disaster, and a great activity to involve the whole family to kind of think through who they'll need to be in touch with and encourage everyone to start thinking about preparedness. And fifth, finally, take steps to learn about risks that are specific to your community, your neighborhood, your home, and think through with your family about how you should prepare appropriately for those.
Marly, those are great tips, and certainly better to be prepared prior to the event when you have time to assemble all of these important documents and take the steps that you need to take rather than in the midst of the event when you're shell shocked and it's like the deer in the headlight looks. What do you do next? What's the next best thing? And so, that's why we all encourage, a little planning and preparation. So I heard talk about flood insurance, and I've heard it said that if you live almost anywhere in Louisiana, whether you're in a flood zone or not, that you should have flood insurance. And so, any other thoughts on why it's important for everyone to have that flood insurance?
Absolutely. We at SBP really firmly believe that everybody is at risk of flood, and everybody, no matter where you live, should have flood insurance, both renters and homeowners. And with the recent storms that we've been seeing over the last several years, we're seeing that more and more, it's not just proximity to bodies of water or elevation of your home that affects flood risk. Specifically, after Hurricane Harvey in Texas, we saw that more than 80% of the homes that flooded were outside of a floodplain. And so those are the typical areas where homeowners have been told that they're at risk and that they should, or that it's required to have flood insurance. So those 80% of homeowners that didn't have flood insurance then had to either take out a loan or dip into their savings to be able to fully recover. And so, we always think about that financial impact on those families. If you're retired and now you're dipping into your savings to rebuild your home, if you were saving for another expense, or if you simply just didn't have the cash or ability to take out a loan, it really puts you in a tough position. And we're still seeing survivors of Hurricane Harvey now almost 3.5 years later, still waiting for support, who kind of struggled through that process. So flood insurance is really important because homeowners insurance and renters insurance does not cover flood damage to your home. The great thing about flood insurance as well is that it's not just for those major disasters. So there can be something just in your neighborhood, just in your home, that's a flood event, and flood insurance will still help to protect you in that scenario. And flood insurance policies cover up to $250,000 for your home and $100,000 for your contents, all of which would be uncovered if you simply had homeowners insurance or renters insurance.
Speaking about flood insurance, and we experienced the same thing in the Baton Rouge area after the 2016 flood, where so many thousands of homes were flooded and so many people were without flood insurance. And there may be, excuse me, a general impression that the government will come in and take care of you if you flooded and you have no flood insurance. But that's not the case, is it? There's only a small amount of government assistance that might be available if you don't have flood insurance.
Yeah, so FEMA assistance is available in the event of a federally declared major disaster. But FEMA is not meant to fully rebuild your home. It's meant to serve those immediate needs affected or created by the disaster, and also to make your home safe, sanitary, and secure, which doesn't mean what your home was like before the event. So the max FEMA award is usually around $35,000. And so that flood insurance amount of $250,000, is really what you need to be able to fully recover should your home be flooded. So, FEMA is a great resource, but it's not going to rebuild your home after the disaster. And in the event of a federal disaster declaration, there are federal rebuilding programs that become available through the state and local recipient agencies of those programs. But those often come 2 to 3 years, sometimes even longer after the event. And so for individuals that aren't able to rebuild on their own, that have to wait for those programs, they're either in temporary housing outside of their home or living in substandard conditions in a damaged or moldy home until those programs come in. So that's why we really encourage flood insurance, to make sure that you're not in that position for so long.
Right. We don't know how bad we need flood insurance until we have to use it and then don't have it and then wish we had bought it. So this hurricane season, like last hurricane season, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So how should we be prepared differently for a natural disaster due to being in the middle of this pandemic?
Yeah, so the first thing that we're really recommending is to pay attention to the evacuation orders, mandatory evacuation orders. So we know that kind of last year, as we were coming into hurricane season, there was a question of, do we have to evacuate if there's an evacuation order? What do we do with COVID-19? And the recommendation is that you should and must evacuate if there is an evacuation order. And that's just because the immediate threat from the disaster event is more of a threat than the risk of exposure to COVID. But in that evacuation, be prepared to adhere to all CDC guidelines to keep yourself safe. And because those evacuations, like if they are declared, are strongly recommended, we encourage individuals who are of high risk or who simply want to protect themselves from exposure to choose to evacuate before that evacuation order comes. So if, a day or two out, if you see a hurricane coming and you just want to play it safe, maybe make it in your family's household plan to evacuate early to prevent yourself from having to go through that evacuation and kind of being in the hustle of what that looks like with all those other people around. And finally, the other thing that we recommend is just to reassess your disaster supplies kit and make sure that you have the items that you'll need to keep yourself safe. So whether or not you're at home or if you're evacuating, if you need to kind of shelter with somebody else in their home, having masks and hand sanitizer, disinfectants, other things in your kit that you can rely on to keep yourself safe from COVID as well as the disaster at hand.
Right, a few things that we never thought of in the past that are important for now and in the future, at least certainly in the short term and maybe even longer. So does SBP have other resources that might be available to people that are looking for preparation or preparedness or response?
Absolutely. So we have an e-learning website where individuals can go to take e-learning classes or access resource guides, all of which are available in both English and Spanish, that guide homeowners and renters through best practices that they can take to be better prepared. We also have on our website recovery guides. So should you be impacted by a disaster, know that sbpprotects.org is a place that you can go to learn more about how to maximize your insurance payouts, how to work with FEMA, how to appeal FEMA if you need to, how to navigate through common kind of barriers after a disaster like contractor fraud. So all of those resources are available on our website and can guide people through those best practices both before and after a disaster. If there are specific resources or questions that anybody has, they can also email us at info@sbpusa.org, and we're happy to connect them with the resource they're looking for or chat with them on the phone to talk through some of their questions.
So a refresher on what we're talking about today and some more in-depth information about, if you want to jot it down and make a list just so that you can be prepared in the event that we experience one of these emergencies. So Marly, we're beginning to wrap up our conversation today about preparedness and some of the resources that might be available. Any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yes, we just encourage everyone to think ahead and make the investment now in yourself and in your home to make sure that you're prepared before disaster season. So we often see people prepare for disaster by preparing for the event. So that's having your disaster supplies kit ready, bringing anything that might fly into your windows, into your home, really protecting your home. And that's all great and really important things to consider. But we also strongly encourage people to prepare for your recovery. So having your insurance in place, having your documents together, knowing how you're going to file your FEMA, knowing how you're going to file for insurance. Think about how you're going to go through that recovery process, because having that predictable path forward will really help to streamline and shorten the time for you to recover after that disaster. Yeah,
we can't say it enough. Be prepared. And it's never easy to go through one of these things, but the more prepared you are, the better you'll be able to manage going through it. And, you got to go through it to get past it. So Marly, on behalf of AARP Louisiana, I want to thank you for joining me today to talk about these great suggestions that will help us all be prepared for what is expected to be another busy hurricane season, at least according to the National Hurricane Center. And to our viewers, let's all be prepared and be in the know about resources that are available to us. Begin your preparations now. And in the event of a hurricane or other disaster, listen to your local government officials for announcements, updates, or important information that you need to know. For more tips on being properly prepared, in addition to SBP, you can visit our website at aarp.org/Louisiana. So on behalf of AARP Louisiana and SBP, thank all of you for joining us today. And until next time, goodbye.